Well, let's jump in. Stacy every week does a new theme song, so we'll let her take it away.
There is a podcast, it's called The Showrunner Show, and you should listen to it wherever you go. You should subscribe to it so you can be in the know about the topics we discuss between our guest and us on the show we call The Showrunner Show.
Amazing.
Nicely done. All right, well.
Slow clap, I love it.
It was a good full speed. If there was more volume to it, it'd register.
Welcome to the Showrunner Show, where every week we demystify some aspect of the job of showrunning for anyone who works in TV or wants to work in TV or just wants to know how it's all made. I'm Drew Dowdle.
I'm John Eric Dowdle.
And I'm Stacy Shabosky. We're so glad you're here, and we're so glad our guest is here. Woo!
Yeah, this week we're talking about the role of the directing producer with Craig Brewer. Craig, we're so excited to have you on. Craig is a filmmaker known for, writing and directing seminal movies like Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, Coming to America 2. He also worked as a producing director and EP, I believe, on Empire.
The official title of producer director belongs to Senna Hamry, and I did not hold that title, but I was kind of a little bit of an interesting producer over at Empire, because I not only worked in the writers' room, but I would direct numerous episodes. So when Senna needed to direct episodes, I kind of was the person that always kind of like lined her up. But I can definitely speak a lot to it. But it was quite a role there on Empire for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, what a juggernaut that show was. And, for us, like in our experience, we've had, 4 seasons of TV, but we've done a lot of the directing ourselves. We've just never been able to quite take that step forward where we're able to like install a producing director. And I think that's something that we've always been so curious about and really wanted to, implement in our lives. So it's something that, in our experience, we don't really know all that much about in terms of the role and the relationships and everything. So I think you probably know a whole lot more than we do.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it really has to do with relationships. That's one thing that I really learned. It's interesting. My whole relationship to television has primarily, before Empire, it was all about pilots. I had directed a pilot for a show that ran a season called Terriers on FX. And then I had, directed about 2 pilots, one for John Wells and another for Paramount with this Urban Cowboy pilot that we did. But then it was really, I mean, I think, I can't remember if it was like the 10-year anniversary of Hustle and Flow or something like that. But the people at Empire had reached out to me saying like, hey, it's been a while since you've worked with Terrence and Taraji. Why don't you come and direct an episode? And my big brother and mentor, the late John Singleton, had directed for the show and said, "Man, you got to do it. It's fun." So they had me come in, and then I kind of got I got a little addicted to directing for television, and Eileen Chaikin, who was the showrunner at the time, probably annoyingly so, I would kind of pitch these fan episodes where I would just go like, man, this is what I wish I could see, and then she took me out to dinner one day and said, I'll never forget this conversation. She said, we have a little bit of a Two Towers situation where Eileen was in charge of the writer's room. Senna Hamry was in charge of making the episodes. And there was sometimes a need to bridge the worlds, which I wouldn't say that they were divided, but there was some need for somebody who was really in the room to kind of like be directing some of the episodes in a substantial way, and also helping other new directors that were kind of coming in and new writers that were coming to set. And so I started as a co-EP on the show, and that was really. I would say that I directed, I guess, about 4 features up until then, and about 3 pilots. But I feel like that show working in episodic and having to go through all the levels of how an episode gets to air was probably that's when I really learned directing. It may be where I really learned.
That's quite
writing.
A statement.
Yeah. Well, really, I really believe that. I mean, like, it's something that I tried to explain it to somebody the other day that in movies, when you're filming features, there's a little part of you that wants to feel that it's a war that is yours to lose in the moment. So I'll give you an example. Like, I need 300 extras for this. And they're like, well, of course you need 300 extras and we're going to get them for you. And then, like, you get closer to the day and they're like, actually, Craig, it looks like it may be about 150. And you're like, no, damn it. It has to be 300. And then people kind of come to you with this like defeatedness. Like, I'm so sorry, Craig, we can only get you 150 extras. And you're like, oh, this is just awful. And then you go off and shoot it. In television, they come up to you and they're like, you have 30 extras. and if you got a problem with that, we're gonna call it Mario Van Peebles right now, and he's gonna figure it out, you know. And so there's something really liberating and educational about that kind of attitude on set, because now I'm sitting there going like, okay, well, what if we just kind of shoot this down the hallway with a long lens and just use our extras in the hallway, and then that'll kind of like dictate the moves. And I did Dolomite as my name right after that with Eddie Murphy, and I remember being driven to set and somebody saying like, "Are you scared? Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Man, I feel cut out of wood after 3 years on Empire. Like I'm good, you know. I'm really." So yeah, you definitely learn a lot, and especially over the arc of seasons and all the challenges and sometimes the issues that you have to fix on the day and fix in the room and fix with the studio and the network.
One of the problems we've had, historically is, because we write and direct too, and then we have a guest director on a show, and right. Sometimes they're amazing and they do everything, you thought they were gonna and they planned on, and sometimes they just like take that, the car right off the road. How do you respond? Like, what do you do when somebody goes off-roading without
typically
when they go
realize,
rogue?
Yeah, you typically realize that day one, pretty early, and you have a long block ahead. Yeah,
I remember a few instances on that. I remember one instance. I of course I'm never gonna name names, but I remember a young director who they paired me with because he was young, he was relatively new, and he was kind of well known on the show, and so it was kind of like one of these things where maybe nobody wanted to tell him no, and so they paired me with him, and I remember there being an issue with something, I believe, having to do with either the set or the photography or something like that. And he came to me and started complaining and wanted something to be done about it immediately. And I said, okay, well, this is happening. So what are you going to do? And he goes, what do you mean? What am I going to do? Go fix this. And I go, no. What are you going to do about this? If you've got a problem with one of your department heads, then you have to fix it. This is you. I need to put you in a mindset that you are the temporary person in this situation, and you need to make it better. And sometimes that kind of honesty in our business is not. It's funny how it's always rewarded when it happens, and yet it's treated with such caution so many times. There really are two, modes of reasoning in entertainment. One is you see a problem, you see a train about to hit the station wall, and you think maybe we should do something to stop that. And then there's another one that's like, or maybe we just let it hit, and then we see if there's some way out. That we do that. I've always been like, maybe we should address that. But then what that involves is sometimes getting involved with tempers and egos and I've always found that it's better just to kind of go in and deal directly with the problem that you're having with the director or with somebody. But yeah, there were a few times that I know on the show where, and I got to be honest, like that's really where a strong producer director is really effective, and watching Senna do it, she really, like, that's where I learned how television production worked. It's something that I remember just like as a director thinking, well, for the first time in my life, I'm now working for somebody else's vision. And that was probably the most liberating thing that had happened to me in my career, was that I wanted to, and it's so funny because I came into television that way. I was such a fan of The Shield, and I had done the second to last episode of The Shield, first time ever directing.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
I remember thinking, like, I know what The Shield looks like. I'd come over to a camera and I'd be like, this is a little bit too, the horizon's a little too even. Can you Dutch that a little bit or something like that? Because that's the show. And so when you look at what like Lee Daniels and Danny Strong had created, I would work for, like, I'd get something going. I'd be like, that's Empire. It wasn't really me. It was like, that was Empire. And I felt like you're really bringing the crafts that you've learned to the table to execute somebody's vision. And I know that as a, the producing director, I mean, like, that's something that they have to maintain throughout the entire series. But for me, it was fun because I was a fan, and I loved directing the show. Even on its hardest of days, I loved it, relished it.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
When there's a guest director, I don't know, how often would you give notes? How often would you get involved, you know what I mean, with a guest director? Or would you, like, how would you approach let's say if you saw something that didn't look like the show, how would you go about managing that?
I know that this sounds like completely obvious to you all since you're in it, but I have been really surprised at just how much television is about post.
Yeah,
I mean, there
agreed.
is a reason why most writers' rooms have editorial down the hall. It's something where I've seen it a few times where a director did, for whatever reason, just did not nail the episode, and that's when the showrunner and the producer director really had to come in, and maybe you find that you have to maybe pick up a shot or do a reshoot or do something to really clarify something in that episode. But it was so interesting to see, like, what directors would work and what wouldn't, because there would really be no rhyme or reason to it. Like, sometimes a director would come in and people would think, like, oh, well, is the cast going to eat this woman alive? And then she turns into an absolute go-to favorite, and especially on Empire, because of the cast. I mean, and I mean this totally respectfully, but like, Terrence and Taraji were demanding in order for them to just nail it. And I've seen so many instances on that show. I remember once where Terrence had to, like, cry over at a funeral and deliver this monologue that was like right out of something out of The Godfather, and to just be in marvel of him, and then have the DP say, like, we're a little soft. And I was like, we have to shoot that again? And to go over to Terrence and say, Terrence, we have to do that again. And he'd be like, I'm there, and deliver the exact same intensity and performance. Taraji was magical, where she would know what lens was on her, and she could bring it, and you really had it in one take. And 9 times out of 10, I would just do one take with Taraji. But because of that, you needed directors that really knew what they were doing. I remember one director was giving Taraji notes, and really talking about her character or something like that, and Taraji was like, when that camera comes off the dolly and you come into a close-up shot, then then I'm going to give it to you. But right now I know that you're in this wide shot and you're only going to use you're going to use it for like a second at the top of it or something like that. And so you'd have this kind of precision with the actors that it's their show, and the directors are going to come in, and anytime they come in to try to, remake the wheel, it never works.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great. We've had that same experience too, where, this actors with experience like Taraji, and, we've worked with Michael Shannon. He knows exactly, he can edit the scene in his head while you're shooting it. And he knows exactly, what you're going to use. And that's really, and to your point, I mean, the biggest revelation, I think, for us in TV versus features, because we also came from features, was it really is the actor's show. I mean, they're the ones that are there day in, day out, season after season. Like, most people are kind of passing through, but it's really their show, and they need to be, respected in that way. And it's really an interesting shift for us as well.
I remember Sean Ryan sitting me down and saying, like, okay, we really need Michael Chiklis in The Shield to stop wearing his sunglasses. He really loves wearing his sunglasses. And we get a lot of these notes from the studio saying, like, can we please see our lead actor's eyes? And he goes, so he's going to always want to put them on, and we just want you to not have him do that. And it was the first shot. This is the first shot of the episode. I'm standing right next to Sean, and Michael Chiklis comes up and he goes, Craig, I'm going to use the sunglasses in this scene. Is that good? I go, good choice, man. Absolutely. And I just remember Sean looking over at me going, did you hear what I said? And I go, it's the first shot of the day of this episode, and I'm going to give him this win, and then I'm going to tell him no every other time. But like, no, it's not going to be no is not going to be the first thing out of my mouth with the lead, who's already directed 2 episodes. So
I love that.
Amazing.
That actually leads to one of the questions on the thing is, who do you work for? Like as a directing producer, I guess in that circumstance, you were just directing.
Right.
But,
right. I mean, don't you think that, like, whenever I'm directing an episode, I was very much at first thinking, like, okay, it's all about like what I'm doing, like my episode, this is my little movie, and I'm going to make a little movie. It was different once I started working as a writer and as a producer in the room, like crafting out the whole season, because sometimes I remember this one episode where like the whole thing took place in a cabin. It was with Demi Moore, and she like literally like kidnapped Terrence Howard, and she was this crazy nurse. And then and so we kind of pitched it as like, well, are we going to do kind of like our thriller, like our Screen Gems type of movie episode, bottle episode?
sounds like Misery.
Well, it was very much Misery. As a matter of fact, they made a joke that it was like my movie Black Snake Moan, because he literally was chained to like a piano, and so and it was this female male like sexual tension going on in this cabin in the woods, and so we did the whole episode, and it was like right at the last minute, the showrunner came up to me and said, look, they love this episode, but they need like a little cliffhanger, at the end of every episode. And you kind of, not me, but we all kind of bottled that bottle episode up at the end. Can you think of anything right off the top of the dome? And it was, and that was really what like television directing and writing was for me, now being part of the room. It's like, okay, well, what can I do right now? And this is what I'm talking about, how I learned about directing. I'd be like, okay, well, what sets are available to us right now? Well, we still got that hospital set. How about we do this? Why don't we have Trey Breyer's character? He's in a coma, right? Is he still in a coma? Did anything change in the last episode? It's like, okay, so he's still in a coma, but how about he starts waking up, and we'll use footage from season 2 of him being baptized, and that's his dream. He'll be under the water, and then when I think in that episode, like he comes up out of the water when he's baptized, and when that happens, we'll have him wake up out of the coma. Awesome. And that's when he'll say this line that the studio needs. To me, I did so much work on that cabin episode, But that's the win for me. That's when it's like, all right, I got to like figure out, because so-and-so on episode 9 is going to be dealing with this, and I do need to help them with that. And so it got out of just the myopic view of directing your episode and got more into like, okay, well, I'm contributing now to more of a seasonal arc. And that's a different muscle I found.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
great.
I love that.
I love that. Those are, I agree. Like those are the wins when you have that kind of, crisis moment of like, we have to figure this thing out.
Right.
Something's gone wrong. Something's gone haywire. We need to figure it out. And the clock is ticking. And I find those to be the most fun, days on set when you solve those kind of things. That's
and they're
cool.
so inconsequential when people see it. They don't know that that's a big
They don't
win
know. No,
at
totally.
all.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
that you just pulled a rabbit out of the hat.
I know, totally.
And
I watch when our shows come out. I watch it with my wife, and I drive her nuts because I'm constantly like, "Oh, you would never believe what." I'm always telling those stories in real time when she's trying to watch it. She's like,
now that you can probably see the Matrix, and my big thing that now I'm forever ruined on is, boy, can I see an ADR line added
Absolutely.
For story. Like suddenly, if I hear some really clear exposition or dialogue on the back of the head.
Back of the head.
back of the head, always excellent.
Back of the
I
head.
know what that is. I know
Totally.
what it
Coffee
is.
cup, stirring milk in a coffee cup, like,
Well,
yeah,
and I've even found that I'm grateful for it now. It's kind of like when I see people, I go over to their house and they watch like TV with the subtitles on. And I was like, how can you do this? And they're like, well, it makes it very clear. I have to be honest. Now I hear those ADRs and I know exactly what they are, but I'm like, well, I did need to know that, I guess. It's a little clearer.
And it's comforting when I notice those too. Again, to my wife, she like, I always point that kind of stuff out, and she's like, never would have noticed that. Like I think we're
right.
People that make it can notice that, but I don't think most people do. And it's comforting to me that it gets by every time, it seems.
I mean, we did a movie with M. Night Shyamalan a number of years back called Devil. And we changed, there was based on a test screening. It tested terribly. Nobody liked it, except one person who totally misunderstood the movie, loved it. And we're like, let's do that. Like, and we ended up, we're like, it's like the whole movie is like back of the heads. And like, we created this whole backstory just
Go with
based
the
on
Barry
prompts.
Williams from Pasadena version.
Totally. Yeah. And it was I'll never forget their comment was like, how would you describe the story? And the comment was, the one guy killed the other guy's fam bam.
Yeah.
And
he's
we're
mad
like-
because the other guy killed his fan bam. We're like, that's brilliant.
Really, the one guy killed the other guy's fam bam. We need to like connect these stories, and it was like a whole bunch of. And for us, that was a big moment of, and then people liked it. Once we connected those,
Came full circle.
yeah. But it was a whole lot of back in the head.
Already,
Matt,
my mind is spinning that is a movie waiting to happen. Where like a mind like M. Night is there, like now going like, wait a minute, are you telling me that this guy has completely now rethought my entire episode from some idiotic thing that he didn't catch, and we're now moving the whole movie in this direction? And then he's got to meet him at some diner somewhere, and then that's the and then it just starts spiraling into like this guy's life.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And the best part is
we-
that made it a twist ending, right? It gave you that,
gave us
Just
the
tied,
twist.
it just tied everything
Shyamalan-esque.
together. It tied the whole room
Thank you,
together.
Barry.
But yeah, there's times too, like on set when somebody's just struggling with their lines. It's like, whispering to the director, like, make sure you cover the back of their head. Make sure you get some good overs in this.
Stay on
scene.
Mike Shannon. Just stay on Mike Shannon for the whole scene. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. You learn those little tricks. I mean, you definitely do.
As a directing producer, how much in the, when a directing producer is, doing all the episodes and kind of fully on staff, how much contact does a showrunner have with the episodic directors in that case, in your experience? Is the showrunner like just in the room and can, not as much on set? Is it, or is it just kind of a go-between?
Here's what I learned watching the whole dynamic on Empire was, and I've been in the room. Let me go first is just like when I was like strictly an episodic director before I was kind of like involved in the room, is you didn't have much interaction with the showrunner except for the tone meeting where they went, scene by scene. and talked about what was needed. The problem that directors have in those situations is that 9 times out of 10, there's going to have to be some changes because of production reasonings. It's like, we don't have enough time. We don't have the money to get that casino that you wanted. We're going to need to do something else to make our day. The script needs to be, it was always an issue on Empire with cutting down story because there was these music numbers and they ate up a lot of screen time. So, I mean, really, even though we're delivering an adequate, page count, if we were honest, I mean, it's probably like we really needed to turn in like 30-page episodes for an hour long because of these music numbers that would need to be put in. But so you're immediately in this kind of like strange situation where you've got to be the outside person providing a solution for kind of like I wouldn't call them divorced parents, but kind of like parents that both have their angle on this. The writers want to keep what they think is important, and they're getting tired of cutting material because the line producers can't afford it. And then the people that are on the ground are like, we just can't make that day and do an episode, right? Coming into episode 9 now after episode 8. And so the director is kind of put in this awkward position of saying like, well, and you've already talked to production about this, and you've already talked to the producing director about your idea, and they all say like, pitch that to Eileen or whoever is the showrunner, so we can, even if she balks at that idea, we can then come around and maybe see if that's something that can work. And because you're the outsider, they're not going to chew your head off completely. And so I found that was an interesting dynamic that would happen between the showrunner in the writer's room and the director. But other than that, you really are dealing with the issues that the actors are having with the script at that moment. And that's when you start getting on the phone with the showrunner and saying like,
got it. Yeah.
Terrence or Taraji doesn't want to have her character do this with Terrence right now. And then, you start getting involved in those conversations as to, well, what you've talked to the actors, what do they want to do? And I was surprised how much, at least on my set, that was something that I got involved with, even more so than the episodic writer, because sometimes there'd be, issues with the actors and the writers, and it had nothing to do with the individual writer. It's just what they represented. It's like, well, this season we're doing something that I was maybe not crazy about or whatever. And there'd be this kind of friction. And it took some time the director and definitely like in our case, Senna Hamry to say like, okay, well, what can be done? And I think that's one of the reasons I'd done that like twice. And that's one of the reasons that Eileen and Fox wanted me in the room. So I would not only like write episodes and write other episodes, but then I'd immediately go off and direct those and then sometimes I would stay, and then the new writer that would come in and perhaps a new director that would come in I would kind of like supervise that.
That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
That'd be so helpful having someone in both places like that.
Physically, where were you most? Were you just traveling a lot, bouncing around? Were you literally I spend the morning here and the afternoon there? Like, where was your body?
I was in Los Angeles in the room, and then we would when we would get the outline up to a certain point, I would probably even tell. There was only a couple of times that I kind of flexed my, hey, I'm a feature director type of guy, where I would work really hard in the room, but then I would say like, well, I'm going to go write this episode in Memphis, Tennessee, and see my kids. And so I would fly to Memphis. I would write the episode. I would do the notes. I would be on the calls. Usually my episodes went okay. Like there wasn't like, okay, this isn't working and let's rethink it. It would be like, all right, well, let's fine tune these story points or so forth. And then I would fly immediately to Chicago and start prepping it. And Senna and I got into a very interesting pattern where, she would always do the opening episode of the season, and I would do the mid-season finale and then she would do the premiere of the mid-season, and then I'd do the second to last, and then sometimes the last. In the later seasons, I was doing some of the episodes that Senna would do as well. So a lot of time in Chicago, a lot of time in Los Angeles, and a week or two at home in Memphis, Tennessee.
And tagging on to that, was this just for your episode? So you sort of be in the room for your episode and go write your episode in Tennessee and then go shoot your episode? Or what about when it wasn't your episode? Then where were you? Or did you have so many episodes that just sort of kept you busy?
I had a lot, and I had a lot that I learned very quickly in my first year in the room how much it's obviously like a huge group effort, but then you find that there's maybe about like 2 or 3 closers that in a pinch they could come up with some pages. So I would sometimes do some polishes on other scripts remotely. Or there'd be an issue like in the room and we're trying to crack something and I'd be like, well, what about this? And they'd be like, can you write that right now? And I'd literally be in rehearsals or waiting for a shot to be lined up. And I'd be sitting there writing that scene and sending it off. But, most of my episodes that I wrote or co-wrote, I was directing. And I think there was maybe about 3 that I did not direct, but I just kind of like assisted in writing.
Doing it all on that show. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was a
So
very
cool.
interesting, and I have to say, like, it was very unique because I don't know if I'd seen anything quite like it. Meaning, I don't know if it happened on other shows, but everybody around me seemed to think that it was an interesting position to be in. That it was unique. Especially, I think, because of my relationship with the actors. I remember there was the second episode that me and Terrence were working on something, and he was on a tear about something, and I started just kind of like tearing back, and we were at each other, and I was like, all right, fine, we'll do whatever however the hell you want, man. It's like, I'm just going to be over here and watching your brilliance and everything like that. And so I'd sit down at the monitor and I see Terrence get in front of the camera and he's like huffing and getting ready. And then I see like he's looking around like this and he goes, oh, y'all, it's okay. Me and Craig, we're brothers and this is how we do. And it's okay. He really had to let everybody know. It's like, we've never had a director, call you a son of a bitch, Terrence, And it's like, no, we love each other. This is how, this is how I got an Oscar nomination. Is this back and forth here? So, but there was also like a tremendous amount of respect and love. So sometimes Terrence would have an issue and the writers would roll their eyes and I'd be like, guys, are we kind of emasculating Lucius a little bit too much? I watched the show and I know that women love this show, but that doesn't mean that a guy shouldn't be able to do like something that would make women mad. You know what I mean? And I go, isn't that part of what the show is? And isn't he making a point? And is there a way that we can, the best moment with a writer on set that I remember having this moment with is that Terrence was not happy with some direction that the character was going with in this episode, and therefore put all his ire on the writer who was on that episode. And a line came in, or a plot device came in from the room that we needed to have Terrence say in this. And the writer was just like, there is no way I'm gonna be able to walk up to Terrence and say this dopey ass line. He's gonna chew my head off. And this writer had kids, and I said, best parenting advice I ever got was don't ask your kids what they want for dinner. You have to say, all right, it's dinner time. Do we want pizza? Do we want grilled cheeses? Or do we want Taco Bell from around the street? You give them 3 for them to go, pizza. right? And then you go,
Yeah.
pizza it is, right? So I said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take this line, and I want you to come up with 4 lines that basically say the same line, and I'm going to go
Great
take it
move.
to Terrence, right? So she came up with
yes.
4 lines, and I go like, hey, man, I can't pick that, I can't figure out what's the best way. Any of these look good to you? And he picked one that felt good, and went back and was like, that's how you work with actors that aren't just a stand on your mark type of actor.
That's
people that have
brilliant.
minds, people that have real opinions on things. And sometimes it's that, I won't say it's easy, but it may be that simple.
Yeah, you get
That's
buy-in.
brilliant.
I love
That's
that.
really brilliant. Yeah. It's amazing how much, family dynamics play into, strategy on set. You mentioned, divorce earlier, kind of being in a divorce situation. And, John and I are children of divorce. And we've always thought that is maybe the most important life experience we've ever had for for our professional career, as being, learning as children how to negotiate, divorced parents. Because
between two very emotional people that love you and damn it want you to love them.
Yeah,
totally.
Every project is some extension of that, and it really is.
Yeah, sometimes you got to pretend that mom doesn't exist when you're at dad's house, and vice versa.
Right.
I'm just thinking of this now. Mom
Right.
doesn't
No,
factor
Mom, you're
into
right.
this.
He's a mess. He's a mess.
But that's how, didn't you guys, the boys ended up eating, you know how you can make like chicken with like cream soup, just like that kind of creamy, saucy chicken, and you put it on white rice. Apparently the boys ate creamy, saucy chicken on top of white rice every dinner for like years.
For years, yeah.
Because they wouldn't be like, hey, guess what we had yesterday?
We
I'm
switched
guilty.
houses.
I've now realized that, like, I'm divorced as well. My daughter will come over to stay with me, and I'll realize, like, I noticed that you're not eating the Millennium Falcon waffle that I made for you as much as you used to, and I'm just now realizing that you were 8 when I started making that for you, and now you're 15. And she's like, I haven't wanted to tell you, Dad, I'm a little over the Millennium Falcon waffle, but because I loved it so much as a child when I came over here, that's like
nice.
the dish that you keep making. And I was like, all right, noted. What does Mom make? Well, she makes a smoothie. It's like, all right, well, I guess I got to like learn some new.
I did notice your examples had a certain theme of like grilled cheese or pizza.
Yeah,
What
a
was
lot
the
of
other one?
dairy.
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
I was like, damn.
A lot of easy stuff. Dad doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, if you like our show, please consider taking a minute to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts, and please tell a friend. That all really helps us find our audience. Thank you. We all appreciate you all being here.
All right, see you guys next time.